Welcome to Book Summary Podcast, your gateway to personal transformation. Each episode delivers big ideas from the world's most impactful books on mindset, productivity, and success, all in just a few minutes. Ready to turn knowledge into action? Let's get started.
Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of compelling sources and extract those potent, surprising nuggets of knowledge just for you. Today we're diving into a really transformative question. What if your relationship with money could shift? Move from what feels like a constant struggle to a state of almost effortless attraction. Imagine not just getting by, but actually thriving, with your finances serving a purpose that goes way beyond mere personal gain.
It's a vision that, well, a lot of people dream about, right? But maybe few truly get their heads around how to achieve it. And that's exactly what we're digging into in this deep dive. Our main source is Steve McKnight's really insightful book, Money Magnet. And this isn't your typical book of quick financial tips. No, it's more like a foundational blueprint for understanding money, right from its most basic principles all the way to its surprising ultimate purpose.
Right, that's our mission today, to really distill the most impactful wisdom from McKnight's work. We'll explore how you can cultivate a truly magnetic financial presence, achieve genuine freedom, and maybe most importantly, figure out how to make your money truly count. Not just for your own survival, but for something much more significant, something that really resonates with your deepest values. So prepare for some clear explanations, maybe some surprising facts and concepts that honestly might just fundamentally shift your whole financial perspective. Okay, so let's kick off with this really fascinating idea. Our financial DNA. McKnight introduces this concept of a financial pedigree in Chapter 12. He argues that our whole approach to money isn't just, a series of random choices we make.
Exactly. Instead, it's profoundly shaped by this powerful combination of, biological predispositions and environmental influences. It's almost like there's this unseen hand guiding our decisions and attitudes towards wealth, often without us even realizing it's happening.
Yeah, and what's really compelling about his perspective here is that while he's not suggesting we have literal financial chromosomes or anything.
Right, not literally.
He highlights how certain tendencies, maybe like an inclination towards addiction, perhaps to spending, or, the opposite, a natural tendency towards discipline, these can actually be genetically influenced.
And that biological undercurrent means that for some people, setting up really robust financial systems and maybe undergoing structured training becomes even more critical. It's about building those external frameworks to support your internal tendencies, especially if those tendencies might work against your long-term financial health.
And it's not just the genetics, is it? Then you've got that powerful effect of behavioral modeling, that classic monkey see, monkey do thing.
Absolutely. McKnight argues we instinctively mimic our parents' financial behaviors, often completely unconsciously. It just sort of sinks in. He paints this really vivid picture with the story of Adam, or Ads. Adam grew up in a household where his mother worked 3 jobs, raising 4 kids after they lost the family home.
Wow, 3 jobs.
Yeah, and get this. They moved 11 times in 11 years during Adam's really impressionable teenage years.
11 times. That's incredibly disruptive.
Totally. And this tumultuous early experience ingrained what Adam later called a poverty mindset. So McKnight's critical takeaway, and it's a powerful lesson for all of us really, is that change begins with awareness and a new mindset.
But it's not just intellectual awareness, is it?
Yeah.
It seems like it's about connecting with those ingrained emotional patterns, too. How does McKnight suggest we actually start cultivating that awareness? How do we consciously rewrite that future?
It's exactly that deeper connection that's key. McKnight pushes us beyond just, intellectually understanding it. He encourages you to reflect on those early influences, not to assign blame, that's not the point, but to really understand the roots of your current financial habits.
Right.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it raises a pretty important question. What kind of financial role models are we being for our own kids?
Good question.
McKnight emphasizes that if parents hide their financial struggles or make money this big secret, then their children learn secrecy around finances. It becomes taboo. But conversely, being open about mistakes, sharing the lessons learned, that can actually help break those generational cycles.
That makes sense, being vulnerable about it.
Yeah, and he even shares his own experience. His father was incredibly frugal, almost to a fault, apparently earned the nickname Graham McTight.
Oh, McTight.
Right. And Steve acknowledges inheriting some of that frugality. His mother, though, was the opposite, incredibly generous. So for McKnight, this unique blend resulted in this desire to be generous, but only towards causes where he felt the money would be genuinely valued and, not squandered. It's a very specific, deeply ingrained mix of inherited tendencies and learned behaviors.
And it goes beyond just the immediate family, too. McKnight talks about how wider external influences can dramatically shape our financial attitudes and, crucially, help us redefine what our normal actually looks like. He shares this really compelling example of Sharon and Oliver. Their inherited normal was basically just working until retirement, much like their parents, sheep farmers and public servants. That was the default path, what was expected.
Exactly. But their financial horizons just exploded, really, through the power of mentors and literature. They actively went out and sought knowledge. They devoured books like Your Mortgage and How to Pay It Off in 5 Years by Anita Bell. Imagine that it fundamentally challenged the ingrained belief that mortgages have to take 25 years.
That's a game changer right there.
Totally. And Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad opened their eyes to the whole concept of passive income, which was a world away from their traditional jobs. And very relevantly, McKnight's own book, From Zero to 130 Properties in 3.5 Years, gave them a concrete blueprint for achieving financial freedom through positive cash flow property.
So they didn't just read, they acted.
They really did. They were diligent in implementing what they learned. It wasn't overnight, mind you. It took them 18 years. But today, their investments generate enough passive income that they can live this amazing life split between Australia and Europe, completely debt-free. It's just such a powerful testament to how actively seeking out and internalizing new information can fundamentally transform that inherited normal.
It really is a great example of how you can consciously choose to rewrite your financial story, even if it feels like your past has kind of set you on a certain path. And McKnight also points out how big historical events can cast surprisingly long shadows on our finances. He uses his own grandfather, Graham McKnight, as an example.
Right, the McTite.
Exactly. His grandfather was incredibly frugal. But McKnight explains this wasn't necessarily a conscious choice born out of some financial strategy. It was a necessity, forged by growing up during the Great Depression.
Ah, okay. That explains a lot.
Yeah, an era of severe financial hardship, widespread shortages. Those habits of extreme frugality were just instilled from a very young age, constantly reinforced by inconsistent pay and huge economic uncertainty.
So his grandfather's mindset, which you could basically summarize as you live lean and when you have more, you save it so you can survive when you have less, that was a direct, deeply ingrained product of his environment. This really deepens our understanding that these inherited traits, whether they're biological or behavioral, aren't always conscious choices we make. Often, they're a profound product of past environments and these deeply ingrained experiences. McKnight even admits he initially resented his father's frugality, felt it was overly restrictive, before he realized its profound historical roots and the survival instinct it actually represented.
That's a powerful lesson in empathy, isn't it? For our own financial histories and maybe our parents too.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about programming your finances. Because McKnight uses this brilliant computer metaphor in Chapter 14. He describes our physical body as the hardware, right? And our deeply ingrained habits and beliefs, those are the software that ultimately directs our financial actions.
It's a great analogy.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
how we're programmed, sometimes consciously, but often sort of semi-consciously, to respond to financial triggers.
That's a very apt way to put it. Our financial software isn't, pre-installed at birth. It gets written or coded through this continuous process of trial and error throughout our lives. If a financial action gives you a good outcome, you essentially save that action or belief as part of your programming.
Makes sense. Reinforcement.
Exactly. And this leads to both deliberate, conscious choices like meticulously researching an investment and a whole host of automatic, almost unconscious behaviors like how we instinctively react to a sale sign or maybe perceive financial pressure from our peers. So many of our daily financial decisions are just running on this automatic software.
And that brings us neatly to financial IQ, or FQ. Though essentially how you think and act financially, your sort of cognitive understanding and application of financial principles. But McKnight gives us a great practical benchmark from The Millionaire Next Door to actually measure this. The formula is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's quite neat. You take your age, multiply it by your total annual income that's pre-tax and excluding any inheritance, and then you divide that number by 10.
Right. And the result is your target net worth.
Exactly. And this formula provides a quick but still insightful way to classify yourself. Are you average, prodigious or maybe an underaccumulator of wealth based on whether your actual net worth matches, exceeds, or falls short of this target.
And what McKnight finds particularly telling, maybe even a little confronting, is this.
Yeah.
That not doing the calculation at all is itself a strong sign of low FQ.
Avoidance.
Precisely. It indicates an avoidance or maybe just a lack of engagement with your own financial reality. He illustrates this with the example of Jane. She initially had a negative net worth, which must have been tough to face, but by actively engaging with this calculation and her finances, she made significant progress. So her improving FQ isn't just about her current score, it's about her ongoing commitment and proactive engagement with her financial health. That's really more indicative of long-term success.
Then there's the other side of the coin. Financial EQ, your emotional quotient for money. This is all about mastering your money emotions, isn't it? Your ability to control and harness those emotional responses to financial stuff, rather than just being impulsively led by them.
Like fear or greed.
Exactly. It's about resilience and self-awareness when things go up or down financially.
And McKnight emphasizes that the real sweet spot for financial well-being is where high FQ and high financial EQ come together. That's where you find balanced, sustainable wealth and, peace of mind.
Yeah, he contrasts this with scenarios where FQ and EQ are separated. For instance, someone with low FQ but high EQ, he calls them wealthy poor.
Wealthy poor. How does that work?
Well, they're rich in spirit, maybe very generous, deeply involved in their community or nonprofit work, but poor in material means. They might be giving meaning to other people's money, essentially.
Okay, I see. And the flip side?
The flip side is the poor wealthy. High FQ, but low EQ. These are the people who are rich in material means, but often poor in spirit. They're focused solely on accumulation for its own sake without a broader sense of purpose or generosity.
Like Scrooge.
McKnight uses Ebenezer Scrooge as the classic example. Undeniably high FQ in his ability to accumulate, but totally miserly and emotionally impoverished until, his big change of heart. McKnight suggests that for some people, achieving high FQ and EQ might happen in separate phases. Maybe focus on accumulating wealth, the FQ part, first.
Get the foundation set.
Right. And then later, once that's established, turn your attention to how to manage and use that wealth with greater emotional intelligence and purpose.
Now, this software we've been talking about, it can unfortunately get corrupted, can't it? McKnight talks about malware.
Yes, disruptive programs and platforms, often disguised as benefits, but really designed to subtly encourage and increase your spending. Think about those ubiquitous rewards programs like Flybys. McKnight meticulously breaks down the inherent trickery of these systems.
Trickery? How so?
Well, to earn, say, 1 million Flybys points, you'd typically have to spend $1 million, right? Assuming 1 point per dollar.
Okay, yeah. A lot of spending.
A lot. Now, guess the cash value of those 1 million points.
I dread to ask.
A mere $5,000 at a rate of half a cent per point.
Wow. So you spend $1 million to get 5,000 back in rewards.
Exactly. On the surface, it looks like a bonus, a discount, reward, whatever. But it's fundamentally designed to incentivize increased spending and loyalty. McKnight's analysis shows the supermarket might spend, say, 5 cents on rewards for every dollar you spend, but they gain maybe 20 cents of income from your increased purchases. That's a 300% markup for them on what they're paying out.
That's quite something. It's basically paying us to spend more.
It's a massive profit for them, directly fueled by your increased, often unconscious spending. And buy now, pay later, BNPL services, they're another prime example of this malware.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere now.
They brilliantly facilitate instant gratification for items that often depreciate super fast or are essentially worthless right after you buy them. For people with maybe lower financial literacy, they might manage the initial down payment, sure, but they often struggle to foresee or really comprehend the compounding consequences of future payments, especially if they're juggling multiple BNPL plans.
It can spiral quickly.
It really can. McKnight uses this powerful analogy. It's like a rip at the beach. The water looks deceptively shallow and calm near the shore, but it can quickly pull you out into dangerous, deep currents. This financial malware, he says, quite bluntly, corrupts your ability to make good financial decisions by just bypassing rational thought and appealing directly to impulse.
But here's the genuinely good news in all this.
Yeah.
You're not stuck with your current programming, right? You can update your program.
Exactly. Your financial programming can always be improved. And McKnight emphasizes it's not about needing some complete reboot or a radical, overwhelming system change.
Which is a relief.
Totally. Instead, it's about making small yet regular improvements. He suggests this incremental approach is where you can truly accelerate your progress without feeling completely overwhelmed.
So how do you do that? What's the formula?
His equation for this program update is beautifully simple. Good habits versus bad habits. You can speed up your progress by either increasing your good habits while keeping your bad ones steady, or holding your good habits steady while actively reducing your bad ones.
Or both.
Or, for maximum acceleration, you actively increase the good habits while simultaneously decreasing the bad ones. The ultimate goal of this continuous refinement is pretty straightforward. Attract and keep more money, and then crucially use that money for substance and meaning in your life, not just fleeting consumption. It's an ongoing process of self-improvement for your financial self.
All right, let's get down to what McKnight calls the kindergarten stuff. With characteristic bluntness, he says it's kindergarten level, but paradoxically, it's profoundly important and often completely overlooked.
Yeah, he asserts that the single most important money skill is simply this: spend less than you earn. Full stop. He states that if you can't master this fundamental principle, you just cannot stay financially afloat in the long run. It's the bedrock.
He formalizes this with that elegant YES formula, right? Income, Y minus expenses, E equals savings.
That's the one. And McKnight warns that basically every financial problem imaginable, from mounting debt to a complete lack of financial security, stems from not understanding, forgetting, or trying to somehow get around this basic equation.
And he really drives home the point about debt being borrowing income not yet earned.
He does. He uses the example of his own brother, Ralph. Despite having significant cash savings, Ralph was denied a credit card. Why?
Why? Because he didn't have savings.
No, he had savings, but he lacked current income to prove he could consistently repay it. This powerfully illustrates that debt isn't just about owing money, it's truly about owing future time. As McKnight puts it so succinctly, the more money you owe, the more time you owe.
Wow. That's a really powerful, almost visceral point. Spending income you haven't yet earned is the surest and strongest way to repel wealth. It just creates this immediate drain on your future potential.
Exactly.
Let's make this concrete, though. Not just simple math, but as a window into real-world financial behaviors and their consequences. McKnight gives several simplified examples.
Yeah, they're quite revealing. If Juan earns $20 and has $10 in expenses, he saves $10. Straightforward, right?
Yep.
But what about Bernadette? She earns $50 but spends $75. She has no savings, so she's in a $25 deficit. That's immediate debt, a clear signal her financial software is causing problems.
And these examples really highlight common pitfalls that people fall into, even if they understand basic math.
Totally. Consider Anna, Anna earns $28, spends $23, saves $5. Okay, it's positive, but is that saving rate really enough for her goals? It raises that question. Or Bruce earns $33, spends $36, but has $10 in savings. He ends up with $7 left, technically a $3 deficit that's eating away at his existing savings.
Ouch.
And Sandra earns $18, spends $24, no savings, she's $6 in debt. McKnight equates that to 4 months of work time already owed to future employers just to cover past consumption.
4 months. Just vanished.
Yeah. And Regina earns $20, saves $2, meaning she strictly limits her spending to $18. The real power of this exercise isn't just the numbers. It's designed to make you, the listener, apply this basic, non-negotiable principle to your own situation, to really confront where your money is actually going versus where you think it's going. It exposes the reality that so many are living on future income without really grasping the cost.
So once you've truly internalized that YES equation, the next logical question is, how do you increase the S for savings? McKnight states it simply. You either increase your income or you decrease your spending.
Not rocket science, as he says, but the real power and the real challenge lies in the details of how you actually pull either of those levers.
Right. So thinking about increasing income, the common, almost knee-jerk reaction is work harder, right?
Yeah.
Just put in more hours.
Yeah, but McKnight swiftly dismisses this as a sustainable long-term solution. Why? Because there are only 168 hours in a week. That's a fixed, unchangeable amount of time.
The ultimate limited resource.
Exactly. If you break it down, maybe 56 hours for sleep, roughly 43 for a standard work week plus travel, maybe 35 for essential leisure and family time, 21 for chores and personal care, 7 for eating. You're left with maybe 6 truly free hours.
Just 6.
Is it?
Not much wiggle room.
Not at all. Which highlights his cup riddle. If your cup, representing your time, is already full and fixed in size, to add new water, more work, You have to pour out old water, stop other activities, or sacrifice existing commitments. Simple time hacks or just trying to squeeze in a few extra hours. He argues those only offer temporary, often unsustainable small gains. His blunt conclusion is that for long-term, significant wealth accumulation, working harder won't usually work. It just leads to burnout, not breakthrough.
Okay, so if working harder isn't the answer, what about working smarter?
That's the more effective alternative. McKnight suggests the quickest gains can come from directly asking for a pay increase at your current job, assuming you've earned it, of course, or proactively switching jobs to one with better pay.
Makes sense. Direct approaches.
But for more substantial long-term increases in your earning potential, he introduces 4 powerful ways to boost your pay by boosting your skills and value. You can solve more problems, solve bigger problems, solve more complex problems, or, most lucratively, become one of the few people who can solve a highly specialized or critical problem.
That sounds like a long game strategy, though.
Oh, absolutely. It requires continuous self-improvement and strategic development. It's not an overnight fix.
And this is where it gets really intriguing and empowering. Income accelerators, or what we often call side hustles.
Yes. McKnight defines these as activities you do in your spare time to earn extra money, with the genuinely exciting potential to eventually replace your main salary entirely. And he introduces this critical concept of time multiple of money, or TMM.
TMM. Explain that.
It's essentially asking how many times you get paid for a single hour of your time. This fundamentally shifts how you think about earning. McKnight argues that truly savvy entrepreneurs, unlike employees who are fundamentally swapping their finite time for income, swap their ideas for income. And ideas, they're virtually infinite.
Trading ideas, not time. That's a big shift.
Huge. He shares his own life-changing moment after that Kiyosaki seminar in '99. It prompted him to travel to Vancouver, where he met internet marketing pioneers Corey Roddle and Derek Gill. They taught him how to monetize knowledge over the internet. And this practical education led directly to him creating his propertyinvesting.com website, which eventually sold millions in real estate education.
Wow. So what started as a side hustle became huge.
Exactly, demonstrating the power of TMM. And he gives another tangible example with Ronnie's side hustle. Initially, Ronnie spent 102 hours setting up an online course. After the first 6 months of sales, his effective hourly rate was a measly $3.92 per hour, barely minimum wage.
Ouch. That's where most people probably give up.
Precisely. But in the next 6 months, with those initial setup costs covered and the product established, that hourly pay shot up to an impressive $75 per hour from ongoing sales generated from the same initial effort. This vividly illustrates McKnight's principle. Here's the catch. It's likely you'll have to go backwards in order to move forwards. You invest significant time and effort upfront, often with little immediate reward, for the potential of exponential leveraged returns later.
That's a powerful lesson in delayed gratification and understanding how leveraged income actually works. You put the work in once, get paid potentially many times.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about the other powerful lever, spending less, or as McKnight puts it, plugging the leaks in your financial bucket. He explains this fundamental truth that often goes unappreciated. A dollar saved is better than a dollar made.
Why is that? It sounds counterintuitive.
Because when you reduce spending, that dollar is immediately saved, right? And it's not subject to income tax. Contrast that with earning an additional dollar, which gets taxed before you even see it all. He highlights Bob's example. To save $100 after a 30% income tax rate, Bob needs to earn $143. But if he simply cuts $100 in spending, he immediately saves the full $100, no tax involved. It's a direct, unburdened gain.
That makes perfect sense when you put it like that. It's tax-free savings. And this leads to that massive yet incredibly common mistake many people make, spending their gross pay instead of their net pay.
Oh, huge mistake. They budget and live as if they have their full salary available. McKnight uses Caitlin's scenario to drive this home. On an $84,000 annual salary, Caitlin might mentally budget based on $7,000 a month. Sounds reasonable, right?
Yeah, seems logical.
But after tax, superannuation contributions, maybe even a car loan deduction, only $3,990 actually hits her bank account. A staggering 43% of her gross earnings are deducted before she even sees the money.
Almost half. Gone before it arrives.
Exactly. So if she continues to spend according to her gross pay, she's not just living beyond her means. She's effectively getting deeper into debt with every single miscalculation. It's this invisible but powerful drain.
So how do you plug those leaks effectively?
Well, McKnight, channeling the wisdom of his grandpa Geordie, McKnight again, advises focusing on pounds, not pence.
Meaning?
Meaning, don't obsess over trivial savings trying to save 50 cents here or there while ignoring the much larger expenditures. Instead, concentrate your efforts on the big-ticket spending categories where significant savings can actually be made. He specifically points to areas like recreation, restaurants, alcohol, tobacco.
The excess spending.
Pretty much. For example, he notes that average annual after-tax spending on recreation and culture can easily exceed $10,000. On restaurants, over $6,000. These are the pounds flying out the window. He cautions against extreme sacrifices like, switching to one-ply toilet paper, because those small, often uncomfortable cuts, they're demotivating and rarely lead to substantial overall savings. It's about impact, not deprivation.
Okay, so focus on the big wins. How do you structure that?
To help control spending more effectively, McKnight offers a structured approach, the GDR 70-20-10 allowance model. And this isn't meant to be a restrictive budget. It's an empowering framework. It starts with allocating 10% of your gross pay to giving. McKnight personally does this, finding it fosters an abundance mindset, reinforcing the idea you have enough to share.
Interesting, starting with giving.
Yeah. Then you account for deductions, compulsory payroll stuff like income tax and super. The remainder of your gross pay is then strategically split. 70% goes to spending for your discretionary needs and wants, 20% is immediately directed to savings, and the final 10% is allocated to slashing, specifically aggressive debt repayment.
Slashing debt, I like that term.
Me too. And crucially, once you become debt-free, that 10% slashing portion, it transitions directly into your savings, accelerating your wealth accumulation even faster. It provides a clear roadmap for every dollar.
Okay, GDR 70-20-10, giving. Deductions, remainder split into spending, savings, slashing. Got it.
And to make controlling that spending allowance even more actionable, he gives us a helpful acronym, SPEND.
Okay, break it down.
S is separate. Clearly distinguish between your financial needs, essentials like housing, food, utilities, and your wants, non-essentials like entertainment, gadgets, fancy meals. P is prioritize. Allocate money to essentials first. Make sure the basics are covered before any discretionary spending. E is enjoy. This is crucial, often overlooked. Allocate specific funds for non-essentials and allow yourself to enjoy them. This prevents feeling deprived, which often kills budgets. Makes it sustainable. N is net. Always remember your salary cap is your net pay, the amount that actually hits your bank, not your gross. D is dissect. Finally, find ways to save dollars, not just cents. Back to the pounds, not pence idea. Focus on bigger cuts, not tiny, exhausting ones.
SPEND. Separate, prioritize, enjoy, net, dissect. That's a really practical tool. McKnight also compares traditional budgets to financial diets, doesn't he?
He does. He argues budgets often fail because they feel restrictive, like a diet telling you what you can't have. Allowances, on the other hand, feel more empowering. They give you a clear boundary, but within that boundary, you have freedom. He says very wisely. You only need to control your spending while your spending is out of control.
So the goal isn't lifelong budgeting necessarily.
Not necessarily rigid budgeting, but here's the absolutely crucial non-negotiable part. Until your spending is under control, you must track all your expenses meticulously. If you're not accountable, then you're unaccountable, he says. And that's exactly when small, seemingly insignificant purchases pile up into massive, invisible financial problems. Tracking gives you the raw data for awareness and control.
You can't manage what you don't measure.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And finally, he issues this stark warning against trying to invest out of a crisis. If you have a fundamental problem with overspending, simply trying to earn more or invest more aggressively won't fix the root issue. McKnight uses the analogy of building a second story on cracked foundations. Without that solid base where your income consistently beats your expenses, your whole financial structure is always at risk of collapse. He states quite clearly, you'll never be truly wealthy or financially free without first mastering the discipline of living within your means and ensuring that basic YES equation is always in the black. It's the absolute prerequisite for any lasting financial growth.
Okay, so with those core mechanics hopefully getting nailed down, let's talk about setting your ultimate destination, financial freedom. McKnight uses this fantastic and really inspiring analogy in Chapter 10, the Apollo 11 mission.
Ah, yes, the moonshot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In 1961, landing a man on the moon seemed utterly impossible, right? But McKnight argues that a compelling vision, properly resourced, meticulously planned, and nurtured over time, can make the seemingly impossible truly achievable. Just like that moon landing. Financial freedom is your personal moonshot.
And to help you chart that course, he provides a very concrete financial freedom blueprint in Chapter 9. This isn't just some vague idea, it's a practical guide. The blueprint walks you through gathering essential data points. Your current annual expenses, he suggests a best guess or maybe a more conservative savings approach, conservative values for your assets, and a comprehensive list of all your current debts. Get it all down.
Okay, laying it all out. Then what?
Then come the critical calculations. First, your target annual income. This is the non-employment income you'd need each year to support your desired lifestyle once you're financially free. Second, the target annual return your investments need to deliver to generate that income. And finally, your target investment capital. You get that by dividing your target annual income by your target annual return. The math clearly shows higher returns mean you need less capital, and vice versa.
Right, the power of return rates. And he includes the house, too.
Crucially, yes. He factors in the cost of owning your home debt-free, adding that figure to your target investment capital to arrive at your total target asset goal. Once you compare this big target to your current assets and total debts, you'll clearly see your remaining capital needed. Now, McKnight openly acknowledges that for most people, the initial results of this calculation can feel overwhelming, maybe even impossible at first glance.
Yeah, I can imagine seeing that number could be a shock.
It often is. It's often the moment where you realize, what you want financial freedom, but the how to actually get there is still unclear or seems incredibly daunting. But that awareness, that's the essential first step.
So how do you bridge that gap, the potentially huge gap between where you are and where you need to be?
McKnight introduces two different approaches for reaching your target asset goal. The first is the simple linear approach. You just divide your total shortfall by the number of years you've given yourself, aiming for equal steps each year. So a $1 million goal over 10 years, that means saving and investing $100,000 every single year.
Oof, that sounds tough, especially early on.
It can be, which is why McKnight personally prefers and advocates for Brendan Kelly's half-life third value model.
Half-life third value, how does that work?
Well, this model offers a more psychologically realistic view of how wealth creation often happens. It acknowledges that the earliest steps feel the hardest, requiring serious discipline and effort. But as you build momentum, and crucially, as compounding starts doing more and more of the heavy lifting for you, the path often gets smoother and faster later on. So this model allows for smaller initial milestones. For that same $1 million goal over 10 years, the half-life model might suggest needing to save and invest around $37,040 in year one.
Okay, $37K versus $100K. That feels a lot more achievable initially.
Exactly. It emphasizes consistent saving, smart investing, and the exponential power of compounding your profits. McKnight even notes his own experience, how he went from buying one property at a time to buying 30 in an afternoon. It shows progress isn't always even or steady. It can accelerate dramatically with experience and capital. This model avoids that daunting feeling of having to hit a huge flat target every single year.
Makes sense. It accounts for momentum. And just like Apollo 11 needed course corrections.
Precisely. Just like that mission needed constant minor mid-flight corrections to stay on course for the moon, your financial journey will inevitably require adjustments. McKnight uses this compelling analogy of flying from Perth to Sydney. An 8-degree change in course seems small in the cockpit early on, right? But it results in a massive 700-kilometer difference in destination.
Wow, that's huge from a small change.
It really illustrates how small, consistent financial course corrections, especially when made early and stuck to over time, lead to dramatically different and far better long-term outcomes. Financial freedom is rarely a straight line. It's a series of smart, continuous adjustments.
Okay, now let's confront the often ignored reality of retirement and McKnight's pretty unflinching pathway to poverty from Chapter 21. His own journey started conventionally enough, right? On the corporate ladder as an accountant.
Yep, working long hours for decades, trapped, as he describes it, in that classic swapping time for money model. This is the common trap. If you stop working, the money stops. It creates this dependency that can really feel like a cage.
So what was his escape route?
His truly life-changing moment came at that Robert Kiyosaki seminar back in 1999. That's where he learned about the transformative power of positive cash flow property. This was the huge revelation. If he could acquire enough properties that generated passive income that arrived whether he worked or not, he wouldn't have to be perpetually dependent on his job.
Damn.
Absolutely. This epiphany led him and his business partner, Dave, to embark on what they famously called their excellent adventure, buying a staggering 130 properties in just 3.5 years.
130 properties in 3.5 years. That sounds insane. How is that even possible?
Well, their goal was ambitious. generate $250,000 per annum in passive income each. It wasn't just about making money, it was about buying back their time and freedom. The how involved intense focus, education, and strategic action, leveraging the principles he teaches.
That achievement is remarkable, but yeah, for many, 130 properties sounds completely unattainable, maybe even reckless. What were the core principles? And more broadly, he warns about that easy path, the one most people take. Income leads straight to spending, which almost inevitably leads to debt.
Right. And this is where those golden handcuffs slowly, subtly bind you to a job. Expenses and responsibilities grow marriage, mortgage, kids, the menagerie, as he calls it. He states unequivocally that debt demagnetizes your money magnet. This path, he argues, leads to feeling perpetually trapped and often to those midlife crises where you realize you're just working to live, not really living.
Okay, so avoiding that path. But what about the safety net? The age pension.
This brings us to a stark reality check McKnight presents about the age pension, covered in chapters 4 and 5. He adamantly stresses it's meant as sustenance, not a supplement. He looks at its history. Back in 1909, it was created as a meager form of income survival, mainly for the career obsolete, those who just couldn't work anymore due to age or illness. It was never meant as an entitlement for everyone.
And life expectancy was much lower then, too, right?
Exactly. Average life expectancy was around 40, while the pension age was 65. So it's truly a last resort. Very few people actually reached it.
So what's the situation today?
Well, while it's more generous now, it's still means-tested, and for many, still falls below the official poverty line. So McKnight's crucial warning is this. Any wealth creation plan that lists receiving the pension as a long-term goal is a poor plan leading to a poor outcome. It's a bare minimum fallback, not an aspiration for a thriving retirement.
And he links this reliance on the pension to a kind of procrastination.
Yeah, a fundamental miscalculation of time. People perpetually delay serious wealth accumulation, always thinking tomorrow through their 20s, 30s, 40s, even into their 50s, until it's often just too late to build substantial wealth.
So the big question, how much do you actually need for retirement?
McKnight critiques those common rules of thumb, like needing 80% of your pre-retirement income. He calls them arbitrary benchmarks, lacking real-world specifics. He prefers more robust data, citing figures from Superconsumers Australia from July 2022. They provide much more detailed savings targets for singles and couples across low, medium, and high living standards. For example, a single 57-year-old aiming for a high standard of living by age 65, they'd need to have accumulated about $745,000 in addition to owning their home outright.
$745K plus a paid-off house. That's a serious number.
It is, and McKnight himself sets that ambitious but, as he proves, achievable goal. $1.25 million invested diligently at an 8% after-tax return can potentially deliver $100,000 per year for life. That puts you among the richest retirees. It's not pie in the sky, it's a target based on clear returns.
Okay, so how do you fund that? What are the options?
McKnight outlines 4 distinct options. Option 1 is welfare the age pension. As discussed, subsistence payment, not a desirable plan. Option 2 is compulsory superannuation. Beneficial, yes, but often insufficient on its own to maintain your pre-retirement living standard. He points to the Productivity Commission finding it won't consistently achieve replacement rates for many. He also highlights cracks in the system, like how it might disadvantage future renters as homeownership rates fall. Super alone might not cover rising rental costs in retirement. His key message, you can't do the minimum and expect to get the maximum.
Right, so super alone isn't enough. What's option 3?
Option 3 is voluntary super contributions. This can be good, especially if you're closer to retirement, say within 10 years due to tax advantages. But the big drawback is the money is legally locked away until you hit age 60. That limits flexibility for younger people wanting earlier financial freedom.
Okay, locked away. So what's his preferred option?
His preferred model, option 4, is what he calls super sufficient. This means saving and investing outside the traditional super regime in personal names, companies, trusts. This model gives you unrestricted access to your money for early financial freedom. You can retire much sooner if you choose, even if it means giving up some tax breaks from super. The trade-off is control and flexibility.
Sufficient. Investing outside the system for control.
Yeah.
Interesting. This discussion of options really raises that point. McKnight hammers home about luck versus skill, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He echoes that famous quote from golf legend Arnold Palmer. It's a funny thing, the more I practice, the luckier I get. McKnight translates this straight to finance. Luck is attracted to skill and repelled by ignorance. This is exactly why he stresses the need to Invest inwards. First, improve your financial IQ and EQ. Deepen your understanding before you start investing outwards by buying assets. Build the foundation so you're ready to recognize and seize opportunities, not just wait for luck.
Build the skill, attract the luck. Got it. And speaking of foundational understanding, let's talk about the dangers of debt, especially home loans. McKnight's stance is pretty controversial, right?
Refreshingly, almost controversially, unequivocal. Debt is always dangerous and never good. He directly challenges that popular, widely accepted idea of good debt. He argues even seemingly beneficial debt carries inherent risks and costs that are often just swept under the rug.
He keeps coming back to that idea of borrowing future time.
He does. He powerfully reiterates that borrowing money is reaching into tomorrow, grabbing hold of money you haven't yet earned, and spending it now. And the direct consequences, he calculates, the more money you owe, the more time you owe. He illustrates this with Sanja's example through $10K credit card, $12K car loan, $1,250 BNPL, and a big $350 home loan. Out of net pay of $42.23 an hour, McKnight calculates the astonishing amount of future work hours, days, even years she already owes. Not to her current boss, but to her past spending.
Wow. That visual of owing future years of work is sobering.
It really is. He does distinguish between bad debt and worse debt, clarifying even bad debt isn't ideal, but it's manageable. Bad debt is temporary, provides a return greater than its cost, has a realistic exit plan, and crucially, is repaid before you pay yourself. Like positive cash flow investments where the asset covers the loan. He's okay being friends with bad debt if it's temporary and on my terms.
Okay, manageable bad debt. What's worse debt then?
Worse debt is debt for depreciating assets or pure consumption, stuff that almost inevitably leads to financial hardship. He cites Helen's car loan. Advertised as 0% interest, right? But the car's rapid depreciation meant Helen incurred what McKnight calculates as a staggering 17.50% quasi-interest cost. Money just vanishing due to the item's falling value.
What if 17.5% cost on a 0% loan? That's a depreciation.
Exactly. That's capital being consumed, not preserved. He puts credit cards, personal loans, BNPL, and yes, even the sacred cow of home loans squarely into this worst debt category because they typically fund depreciating assets or consumption, tying up future income. He contrasts this with the fable of the goose that laid the golden egg. Live off the income, the eggs. Don't consume the capital, eat the goose. True financial freedom means accumulating a whole flock of golden geese, generating income without eroding your capital base.
A flock of golden geese. I like that image. This naturally leads to his critique of what he provocatively calls the Great Australian Property Pyramid Scheme in Chapter 20.
Yeah, provocative is right. He argues government incentives and societal pressures don't foster financial literacy. They actually transfer wealth from often unsuspecting buyers to sellers, essentially propping up overpayment for properties. He advocates educating people to be better makers, managers, and multipliers of money rather than bigger borrowers of debt.
So how does he view the family home then? It's the Aussie dream, isn't it?
He views a home primarily as a lifestyle asset. You buy it for enjoyment, shelter, family life, not as your main investment vehicle for wealth creation. Buying it with debt, he says emphatically, is reaching into tomorrow, resulting in the obligation to have to keep working for decades just to service that debt.
Okay, but what about the common arguments? Like, I'll never own a home if I don't borrow.
He tackles that head on. His counter is insightful. Maximize your financial future first. Focus on building genuine wealth through smart investing. Then, and only then, buy a home debt-free with the profits from your investments. It completely flips the traditional script.
Wow. Invest first, buy the house later with cash. That's radical. What about rent money is dead money? We hear that all the time.
He calls that bollocks. His word, not mine. He highlights the clear benefits of renting. Flexibility, no huge transaction costs like stamp duty or agent fees, and critically, preserving your capital to invest in potentially higher returning assets. He gives a dramatic comparison. On a typical $500 care mortgage, after 5 years, you might have paid $120,000 in interest, but only maybe $40,000 in principal. That, he argues, is the real dead money.
120K interest versus 40K principal,
Mm-hmm.
That's a stark difference. And the idea that property prices only ever go up?
Again, bollocks. McKnight, having lived through multiple cycles, has seen significant downturns and crashes. He emphasizes a key defensive strategy. You never want to be a seller in a down market, and you won't be if you don't owe money. Debt forces your hand. He questions the perceived security of a home if you lose your job or interest rates suddenly spike, plunging you into mortgage stress.
So what's the bottom line on homeownership for him?
While he acknowledges that for some who struggle with financial discipline, a mortgage can act as a kind of forced savings, he warns it often leads to being asset-rich, income-poor in retirement. His preferred path is clear and consistent. Astute investing first, to fund both comprehensive financial freedom and the eventual debt-free purchase of a home. Debt-free should be the ultimate goal.
So we spent a lot of time on the mechanics, making money, attracting it, building freedom. But now let's shift to what McKnight sees as the profound, deeper purpose. Making your money count for something way beyond personal gain. He uses this beautiful coin analogy, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's great. One side of the coin is using your head, the logic, the strategy to multiply money for survival and personal provision. The other side, arguably more fulfilling side, is using your heart to make that money count for significance and meaning in the world.
And his own personal journey really illustrates this transition, right? He talks about it in chapter 24.
Vividly. After achieving what most would consider the absolute pinnacle of financial freedom through all those properties, he candidly shares that it didn't dramatically increase his happiness. In fact, he felt this strange sense of emptiness, even lonely, and found himself asking that big question. Is that it?
Wow. Achieved the dream and felt empty.
Yeah. And this profound existential question ultimately led him to what he calls his second mountain, a deliberate, conscious pursuit of significance, finding purpose beyond just accumulating more. It's a powerful testament that money can solve survival problems, but maybe not existential ones.
And he stresses a vital point here. Survival and significance are complementary, not sequential.
Exactly. You don't and shouldn't wait until you feel rich enough to start giving back or contributing meaningfully. McKnight passionately argues that investing in significance, in altruism, doesn't just benefit others, it genuinely fills your own soul. As he puts it, it far exceeds the happiness you glean from watching your money multiply.
That's a big claim. More happiness from giving than from watching investments grow.
That's what he found. He even shares his own deep personal rediscovery of faith and how the Bible's teachings on money shifted his perspective, focusing on a right attitude towards wealth and storing up treasure in heaven through meaningful action. He tells this amazing story of intentionally trying to outgive God and then experiencing an unexpected tenfold return on his generosity, which just further solidified his conviction in giving.
That's a truly powerful story, and it connects directly to his practical framework for significance, which he breaks down into the 3 C's in chapter 25.
Right. The first C is care, identifying a deep care etched on your heart, something that resonates with you deeply, maybe from birth, your upbringing, or significant life experiences. For McKnight, the whole origin of the McKnight Family Foundation came from this profoundly impactful property inspection. He and his partner Dave witnessed the stark, desperate living conditions of a struggling family.
That must have been confronting.
Totally. And this visceral experience ignited this deep desire within them to empower families experiencing financial hardship. It prompted them to take concrete action.
Okay, so starting with care, what's the second C?
The second C is cause, which means translating that deeply felt care into tangible, actionable steps. He uses that beautiful, well-known starfish story. You know, the little girl throwing beached starfish back into the ocean.
Yeah, making a difference to that one.
Exactly. Despite being told she can't possibly make a difference to all of them, her response, "I made a difference to that one," perfectly encapsulates McKnight's message. Stop thinking me and start thinking we. Don't get paralyzed by the sheer scale of the problem. Just act where you can, for whomever you can. Any action, no matter how small it feels, can be profoundly meaningful.
Care, cause, and the third C.
The third C is a contribution strategy. McKnight offers very practical advice here. It's better to give less more often than more, less often. He actively advocates for giving repeatedly from recurrent income rather than once from capital. This provides consistency and integrates giving into your ongoing financial life. It's not just a one-off.
So regularly giving from income, not just lump sums from capital.
Right. He even provides a concrete formula for some friends who wanted to donate a $400,000 capital gain. He helped structure it so that $400,000 given over 5 years to 4 charities meant a consistent $20,000 per year per charity. This consistent, structured giving, he believes, imbues money with a meaning that truly transcends dollars and cents, making your financial life feel genuinely significant and purpose-driven, not just transactional.
Care, cause, contribution strategy. That makes a lot of sense. Finally, McKnight talks eloquently about the ultimate culmination of this journey, leaving a lasting legacy in chapter 26. He challenges each of us with that profound question. How do you want to be remembered after you're gone?
It's a big one. And he shares that incredibly powerful, almost mythical story of Alfred Nobel, the inventor of dynamite.
The Nobel Prize guy.
That's him. Nobel famously read his own obituary. It was mistaken, published accidentally, and it labeled him the Merchant of Death.
Ouch. Imagine reading that about yourself.
Right. This shocking premature glimpse of his legacy apparently prompted him to create the Nobel Peace Prize, fundamentally shifting how he would be remembered from destruction to profound global significance. It's a chilling reminder that we have the power to shape our own narrative.
It really is a stark reminder that we all have that opportunity to reflect on how we're living now and whether it truly aligns with how we want to be remembered. McKnight challenges us to distill this down to our one-word obituary. What single word sums up how you want to be remembered? Loving, honest, faithful, generous, innovative.
And then the crucial follow-up: is your current life actually congruent with that aspirational word? That self-reflection creates this powerful imperative for action, doesn't it?
Definitely. And he offers a practical framework for this legacy building.
He does. A legacy framework called Do, Doing, Done. It starts with your intentions, your do's, getting your ideas and dreams out of your head and onto paper, making them tangible. Then it moves to your actions, your doings, the ongoing work in progress to implement those intentions. This is where the effort happens. And finally, it culminates in your deeds, your dones, the finished product, your ideas brought to fruition, making a real-world impact. As McKnight puts it, doing is the difference between those who dream and those who get things done.
Doing. Intentions, actions, deeds. I like that.
And to be truly significant, he argues, your largesse, your distribution of gifts and wealth, must be predominantly selfless. He draws that clear contrast between Nobel's impactful, multi-generational influence and purely selfish acts that are rarely remembered or celebrated beyond a fleeting moment. He emphasizes the power of incremental, consistent action. Many small things done well are far better than a few great things done poorly. Quality and consistency over grand, maybe flawed gestures.
And he wraps this up with that beautiful proverb.
Yeah, the Greek proverb, "A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they know they shall never sit." It's all about planting for the future, knowing you might not personally benefit, but that future generations will flourish because of your effort today.
Planting trees for the future. It's a lovely metaphor. And he connects this to his own current project.
He does. He concludes this deeply personal part of his message with his own current passion project called Tree Change. McKnight is actively involved in planting over 300,000 trees to establish the sprawling new native forest in Northeast Victoria. It's a literal, tangible act of planting trees whose shade future generations will absolutely enjoy long after he's gone. And he extends this open invitation to listeners to graft onto his project, maybe by sponsoring trees or even volunteering if they don't yet have their own personal legacy project to focus on. It's a really powerful, actionable call to contribute to something bigger than yourself.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, wow, we've journeyed through this really intricate landscape of becoming a money magnet. We started by understanding how your financial heritage and your mental blueprint shape your relationship with wealth. Then we moved on to mastering those core mechanics: income, expenses, savings, discovering how small, consistent actions can lead to really profound results. We charted the path to financial freedom, acknowledging both the calculations and, importantly, the mindset shifts needed. And ultimately, we uncovered what might be McKnight's most profound insight: the transformative power of making your money count for something far bigger than yourself.
Yeah, the key takeaway feels really clear and resonates deeply. Financial freedom isn't merely about accumulating wealth for its own sake. That's just part of it. Instead, it's about aligning your resources with a deeper purpose, creating a life that offers both material independence and truly meaningful impact. And you are not passive in this journey. You genuinely have the power to reprogram your financial destiny, moving towards both survival and significance.
So, as you, our listener, reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought. What single small course correction in your financial habits, if you applied it consistently over time, could lead to a dramatically different outcome in your future? And beyond that personal growth, what tree, whether it's a financial contribution, an act of service, or maybe pursuing a personal passion project, what tree will you begin to plant today? Whose shade you might never personally enjoy, but that will undoubtedly benefit generations to come?
If this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, maybe ignited a desire to attract and keep a fortune that truly counts, we really encourage you to continue this exploration. The journey towards financial mastery and profound significance is definitely ongoing, and there are always more insights and tools waiting for you to discover.
Thanks for tuning in to the Book Summary Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, hit that like button, subscribe for more summaries, and share it with someone who's ready to grow. Want deeper insights, exclusive book notes, and reading tips? Join our free newsletter. The link's in the description. And don't forget, if you'd like to read the full book, our affiliate link is right below. It helps support the channel and keeps the summaries coming. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing.